Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Nuff channel. In this video we're looking at the NRL SuperCoach stock market as we go into round 26 of the 2023 season. So it's head-to-head grand final weekend. It's one decision could make or break the whole season. So with the bid on the line, I thought we'd have a bit of a look at a few options. Um, but before we do, just have a quick look at a little strength of schedule calculator. So it's not the world's smartest algorithm. Essentially, I just took the position on the ladder of each team's opponent for the remaining 2 weeks of the season and added them together. So, for example, the Sea Eagles are playing against the 15th place Bulldogs this week and the 17th place Tigers next week, which gives them a score of 32. While at the opposite end, Parramatta playing against the number one ranked Penrith Panthers this weekend and then having a bye next weekend where their players are useless. So I've given the bye a ranking of 0 essentially, or a score of 0. So as you can see, the Eagles obviously have a really nice run with the Dogs and then the Tigers to finish the season. The Warriors are also very well up there with the Dragons this week, and then the 14th place team next week. Believe that's the Dolphins. But I don't remember off the top of my head. I calculated the scores and then deleted that information. I guess where there's a tie, I based it on their ladder position. So obviously, the Roosters are probably a stronger team than the Bulldogs at the moment. So that's why they're ranked above the Bulldogs despite having the same score. Um, and I guess the Rabbitohs got slid down amongst the teams that are on 10. Purely because they're on the bye this week, so their players are not much use to us this week in the head-to-head final. But yeah, just as I guess just one way we can go and separate out a few options. If you're tossing up between a couple, you can always look at what's their strength of schedule like over the next couple of weeks. So in terms of the hookers, and I guess for all the positions, we're just looking at a buy, keep, sell, avoid type approach. Just again, a lot of people have a lot of the similar players. There's lots of good options we already know about. So just trying to differentiate a few. But with the hookers, I've put Appy Coruscant on the buy list. Um, so while I guess, the Tigers are bottom of the ladder, the teams they match up against are actually pretty good scoring opportunity, or do allow a few points against hookers. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me. But when I was making the decision on which hooker would I suggest buying as a second option for the last 2 weeks, his name was the one that sort of come out with the favourable matchups. Obviously, also kicking goals and that sort of thing. So if the Tigers can score some points, that will lead to him getting that nice little bonus as well. On the keep list, I think it's pretty obvious just to keep Harry Grant. He's the number one for a reason. Just set and forget. Despite having a relatively tough draw to finish the season for the Storm, I think he'll be okay. He's pretty much matchup proof. Selling Damien Cook, obviously, has the bye this week. Play the Roosters next week, which might be a favourable matchup for him. But I guess just when you look at the form lines, I think the Roosters are on the up and South are a little bit on the way down. They will, potentially be in the box seat for that final spot, which is nice. But yeah, I think you've only got him for 1 week, so you might as well sell him and use the funds elsewhere. And on the avoid list, I'll put the cheese. I guess just trying to pick someone to stay away from. I don't know if he's the most popular pick. But a lot of people might chase that bit of upside, particularly against the Tigers this week. But the Tigers, as we said, they're matching up well against the teams in terms of the hooker position. They actually defend quite well in terms of the hooker position too. So for that reason, I had to include someone, and so Brandon Smith got the nod there. In the front row, so this isn't probably the position I'd look to buy either, really, but I've given Jake Turbo, or Travojevic, I should say, a shout out. purely just because the Bulldogs' middles have been putrid. So, you saw a couple weeks against the Knights, the likes of Leo Thompson, Jack Hetherington getting tries. And with Trbojevic's ball work around the middle of the field, he could easily get try assists or even crash over for a try himself. So, um, yeah, if for whatever reason you're desperate to buy a front rower this week, I can't really imagine a scenario where that would be the case, but he's the pick just based off the matchup this week. In terms of keep Big Tino. He's got a toughish matchup this week against is it the Warriors. I should have remembered a few things before I kick this off, but he's a keeper for a reason. Like I said, just trying to throw up some names here. I did have Horsburgh as a sell, but he is named to play, despite going off with HIA or head injury assessment. I don't know if he passed it or not. I'm assuming he did if he's named in the team. Um, but yeah, it could be just a watch and wait. And on the avoid list, I've got Ruben Cotter on the avoid. Um, I think the Cowboys have some unfavourable matchups in terms of the middle forwards. So for that reason, I've got the avoid on him. In the second row, so I guess on the buy list, I have got Olakuatu. Um, I guess this is going to be a bit of a recurring theme. I think, the Bulldogs is a really nice matchup this week, and then the Tigers next week. So, if you are looking for a forward point of difference, I'd probably even avoid the front rowers if you've got any dual position players you can push up there. I'd do it and bring in Hamole because I think he could go big in the last couple of weeks. I've got keeping Jermaine Hopgood on the list, so playing against Penrith this week and then the bye, it's a pretty rough finish for your Parramatta assets. But I think out of all of them, Hopgood is the one that could still score well this week. So for that reason, I'd suggest keeping him. But I would look at selling Bryce Cartwright. Tough matchup. I can't imagine he'll get a lot of attacking stats down that edge. Um, and yeah, he doesn't play next week. So, Cartwright to Olakuatu is a really nice trade for this week if you can pull it off. But I guess with some injuries and suspensions and buys, this may be a low priority at this point. And on the avoid list, I've just put Schuster. I guess you see him up against a team like the Dogs. It's a game where he could spike, but he hasn't been named. He's been dropped. They've got Tuolangi and Travojevic in the second row. Ben Travojevic, that is. So, for that reason, I think you can steer clear of Josh Schuster. Uh, in terms of halfbacks, so, we've talked about there's really three options. So I've put, the best of the three, I think, is Sean Johnson, just based on his fixtures. The strength of schedule, that's the word I was looking for. Um, Cleary's next, so I thought keep him. So out of the three, maybe avoid Hines, but Nico's back in form now that he's got Trindle outside of him, providing a bit more of a steady hand at the six, and the rest of the team doing a bit better. And so basically sell the rest. If you're still messing around with pods at this stage, I don't think it's worth it. So get rid of them. Go with the big three. On the 5/8 this week, the buy, and this is probably the best buy if you don't already have him. And you can also get him in at centre wing if you need to, but I would be buying Joey Manu. So move to fullback this week with Teddy's HIA against the Tigers. I saw a stat today. He averages 91 Supercoach points playing fullback. So, you could almost consider him in your captaincy options as well. It's that good of a get this week. If you don't have him, he is the number one best buy. Get him in. In terms of keeps, keep on to Cam Munster. Um, now that I think about it, he's got the Gold Coast this week. So when I was trying to think who Tino had before, I forgot that it was a tough matchup against the Storm. Um, Obviously, players like Tino do well against the Storm. Their middle forwards aren't what they used to be. But yeah, attacking players like Cam Munster, you do want to get against the Titans. Um, as good as a team the Titans are, they do leak a few points defensively. Um, and so, you can play Munster with confidence this week. Selling Cody Walker, so obviously doesn't play this week. Won't have Latrell with him next week. It's not to say that he won't fail, but I think if you haven't got Manu and Munster and probably Ponga, they're the three that you'd want in the 5'8" positions. So Cody's a bit surplus to requirements at the moment. And on the avoid list, I've got Dylan Brown. He's playing halfback, so he is scoring well. But Penrith this week, bye next week, not worth it. So don't worry about trying to bring him in as a point of difference for the head-to-head finals. Centre wing, so I've got Dallin Watene-Zelezniak as a buy. The Warriors do have a really great schedule the next couple of weeks. He's been in great form, scoring tries for fun. So if you are looking for a nice point of difference, he's still only about 12% ownership. Last time I checked, he's a really great get this week. I've put Ruben Garrick on the keep list. Initially, he was a sell, um, but he is named in the extended bench. So I've got to keep just in case, he does come good. But if the report is correct that he has a fracture in his back, Manly are only a mathematical chance of qualifying for the finals. I don't think they can actually make it. So you wouldn't imagine them risking, doing further damage to a player like Ruben Garrick just to get through the last two games of the season. If you can cover him, and like I know for example, I've got Jacob Carraz that I can sort of have there as a placeholder, and switch them in and out in the last minute. You can leave it right up until kickoff. The Night Sharks game as well. So if you've got someone like a Marzu or those sort of players, you can perhaps use them as a reserve and flip late if you need to. Um, but in saying that too, if you wanted to sell and get Watene-Zelezniak or CNK is obviously another great option. He's more popularly owned already. But yeah, you could definitely go down that path. But I think if you can, you just hold, wait for final teams, and then make a decision. Because if he's playing, we talked about the middle forwards having success against the Dogs. The centre wings and fullbacks also have a lot of success against the Dogs. So therefore, you want to try and play him if he's going to be playing at fullback. On the sells, I've got the Rabbitohs assets, so Alex Johnston, Campbell Graham, very similar discussion to what we've had previously. By this week, down on form. They might be fired up for a big one against the Roosters, but, I guess this is the head-to-head finals week, so if that's your priority, they're no use to you then. And on the avoid list, I've really struggled with this one, so I've thrown Marzu in there, even though I said he's a great choice for this week already. Essentially, what it comes down to is the Sharks actually rank third in terms of defending against Supercoach centre wings. So, yeah, obviously, while Marzu's in great form and he has the built-in base, I was trying to come up with something, and that's the stat I'm hanging my hat on. So, yeah, I wouldn't actually suggest avoiding him, but just threw someone in there for conversation's sake. And finally, the fullbacks. So, I guess there's a bit of action here because we've got Teddy out, Latrell's out for the season with the one-game suspension. Um, Ryan Pappenhausen back in the extended bench for the first time this year. So with that, I've actually got two buys this week. I really like Reece Walsh. I think if you haven't got him, you get him in. And if you are looking for a second fullback because you've got Teddy and Latrell, or you might have Gutherson as well, as you can see on the list, I actually really like Dylan Edwards as a very sneaky pod for the rest of the season. Penrith have a couple of favourable matchups. Para, their form hasn't been great. And then they finish the season with North Queensland, who have been slipping a bit as well. So he could be the one that gets you a head-to-head championship this weekend and a couple more overall points next week as well. I've got here, if you can afford to keep Teddy. I know it's a bit of a big call. You want to have two gun fullbacks playing, but if you can somehow swing it, he will be back next week. So particularly if you're playing overall, he could do the business next week against South if there's a final spot on the line. As I've said, Latrell's out for the season. I say the season, there's 2 rounds left, so sell him. Sell Gutherson, playing Penrith this week might not go so well. He's on the bye anyway, so I think it's time to move him on. And avoid Ryan Pappenhausen. As exciting as it is, and I said in a previous video, he would be a super pod for the end of the season. I imagine that if he does come into the team, it'll be off the bench. He'll play 20 minutes at the back end of the game, just getting his feet before the finals. And even next week, if he was named to start, you'd imagine they'll have someone like a Tyron Wishart or something on the bench in case things go wrong. And if they can afford it, they won't play him the full 80 minutes anyway. So while it's not good news in terms of Supercoach this season, if he does have those couple little cameos at the end of this season, it could mean big things for his price going into the start of next season. So fingers crossed he does get on the field, but preferably coming off the bench as that utility type role for at least this week to really keep that average nice and low. So a bit selfish there, but we'll wrap it up with that. But just a short one. Again, there's not a lot of trades flying around. I know I've got 2 trades left. I'm going to use them both this week in order to, try and win a couple of head-to-head finals. So this could really be the last stock market video for the year. And saying that, it's definitely not the last video for the year. We'll still do the round preview tomorrow before kickoff and Thursday night footy. We'll have the round 26 review, round 27 preview, a couple of other videos as well post the season through the finals. Around some of the predictions we made at the start of the year, that sort of stuff. Also got, Fantasy Premier League and NFL fantasy content coming out. I've created some leagues, so if you want to join in, have a bit of fun with that over the summer, you'll find the links in the EPL and NFL videos. I should start posting them more regularly just on the channel for subscribers and the like to access. But as always, if you enjoy the content, remember give the video a like. Subscribe to the channel. As I said, lots of content coming in the coming weeks and throughout the summer. Comments, if you wanted to make any comments on players you think are pods for the head-to-head finals, let me know. I'm all ears. But other than that, thanks for watching as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.